Assalamualaikum and a very good day to everyone. So for today, we will continue on data warehousing, and we will briefly introduce to you what is the data warehouse. Okay, so the learning objective for today is to introduce to you the main concepts and the benefits associated with the data warehousing. And we will also explain on how the online transaction processing OLTP system differs from the data warehouse, what are the problems associated with the data warehousing, and also the architecture and the main components of the data warehouse. Okay, so the early definition of data warehouse by Inmon 1993. So this is, he mentioned that as data warehousing is the subject-oriented, integrated, time-variant, and non-volatile collection of data in support of management decision system, management decision-making process. Okay, and so these are actually the keyword for the data warehouse. So basically, the data warehouse is the integrated view of your corporate data, and this is drawn from the disparate operational data sources. You take this the view of your data, okay, and the source of the data is coming from the operational data sources, and you also have a range of end user that can be able to access your tools and is capable to support from simple to highly complex queries to support the decision making. Okay, and this is basically on the typical architecture of your data warehouse. Okay, on the left side, you can see here we have the operational data source. So this is actually the data source where the data source is coming from. It can be from the internet, it can be from the commercial database sources, okay, and this will be injected to your warehouse manager, load manager, or query manager. On the bottom here, you have the operational data store. So the operational data store is structured and supplied with data in the same way of the data warehouse, but maybe it will act as simply as the staging area, okay, before it will be moved to your data warehouse, okay. And next, as I mentioned, we will go to the load manager here. So this load manager will manage on all of data that is related to the ETL, okay. And then we have the warehouse manager, okay. Warehouse manager will perform on all of the data associated with the database in the warehouse. So the warehouse manager will make sure that it will be able, okay, so the data will make sure that the analysis of data is consistent, and then it will transform and also merge your data source, okay, from the temporary storage to before it will move to the warehouse table, okay. And then we have here the query manager, okay. What the query manager will perform on all of the tasks based on the queries, okay, by the user, okay, and then it will direct the queries to the appropriate tables, and then will schedule the execution of the queries. So that is the task of the query manager, okay. And then we have three types of data here. First is the detailed data. So the detailed data is usually it is not stored online, but it is available by combining all the data to the next table. But then they move on to the lightly summarized data. So the lightly summarized data is will store all the predefined lightly and highly summarized, okay, data generated from the warehouse manager, okay. So usually this part is subject to change on the ongoing basis in order to respond to the changing queries of the user. And we have the highly summarized data. So these two is basically subject to change, and then it is usually will be updated when the new data is loaded into the warehouse. Okay. And then all of this data, okay, and is associated with the archive or in the archive or the backup data. Okay, so in the archive and or the backup data, it will store all of the detail and the summarized data for the purpose of archiving and also backup. And although the summary data is generated from the detailed data, so it is maybe necessary also to backup the data online if this data is, if you want to keep it for the long time for the data retention. And then we have here metadata. So this area will store about all of the data about data. So that metadata is actually the data about data that is used in all the process of this warehouse. Okay. So usually the metadata is used for the extraction and the loading process. Okay. And then we also use this for the data warehouse management process. And it is part of the query manager process. Okay, lastly, we have the end user access tools. Okay, so the principal purpose of your data warehouse is to support the decision makers. So this user will interact with your data warehouse using the end user access tools. Okay, so end user access tools will be able, okay, so this end user is firstly is divided into the reporting of query, application, development, and also EIS tools, and then we have the OLAP tools, and also we have the data mining tools. So these tools is usually data warehouse is usually very efficient in supporting the ad hoc and also the routine analysis. So we categorize. So end user will be able to choose on the rules of and how they want to access on the database, and also will be able to choose on this range of the tools that is able to access on the data warehouse. Okay, next we go to the characteristic of data in data warehouse. Okay, as Inmon in 1923 mentioned that the data held in the data warehouse is being described as being the subject-oriented, integrated, time-variant, and also non-volatile. So this is the characteristic of your data in data warehouse. Okay, so firstly is the subject-oriented. So basically the data warehouse is organized, okay, around the major subjects of your enterprise. So it is organized, so the customers, the products and sales are organized in their own tables, okay, rather than the major applications of the area, for example, the customer invoicing, the stock control, or the product sales. So basically, this reflects on the need to store the decision support data rather than the application-oriented data. You want to support the decision, okay? So, and secondly, we have the integrated. Okay, so data warehouse integrates corporate application-oriented data from different sources of system. Okay, so usually this will include the data that is inconsistent. So the inconsistent data, you want to integrate these data sources. Okay, so the integrated data source must be made consistent to present the unified view of the data to the users. Okay, and thirdly, the data must be time variant, which is it is only accurate and valid at some point of the time over some time interval. Okay, so the time variance is also shown in the extended time that data is held, and the fact that the data represent the series of the snapshots. And lastly, the data must be the non-volatile data. So usually the data in the data warehouse is not normally updated in the real time, but it will be refreshed, okay, from time to time on the regular basis. Okay, but the new data is always will be added as the supplement to the database rather than the replacement. So that is basically the characteristics of data in the data warehouse. So the benefits of the data warehouse, if it is successfully implemented, it can bring major benefits to the organization. Firstly, it will potentially perform high returns on the investment, okay, and also it will give the competitive advantages, okay, and also it will increase the productivity of corporate decision makers. In terms of design of data warehouse, okay, firstly you have to consider the dimensionality modeling. So it is the logical design technique that aims to present the data in the standard intuitive form that allows for high performance access. Okay, so basically there are two types. Firstly is star schema, and we have also the snowflake schema. So the star schema is the dimensional data model that you have fact at the center, and then the surrounding tables are the denormalized dimension tables. And opposed to that, we have the snowflake schema, whereby the snowflake schema have also the fact table inside in the center of in the center of the data model, but the surrounding tables are the normalized dimension tables.